Shocking! An invisible force field has been discovered in Utah Mesa in the Skinwalker Ranch. It was an unexpected discovery for the team during an experiment, and they wondered what this strange force might be, or where it might have come from. In order to carry out this experiment, they asked for aid from a technician by the name of David Mason, as well as a local fire management official by the name of Don Mitchell. This venture was regarded as being rather challenging. They had the intention of carrying out the operation in the region between the Triangle and the South Field, where an invisible force field had been discovered in Utah Mesa. Mainly in the Triangle, Homestead 2, and the South Field, they have documented a great number of strange incidents just in this year alone. We discovered the blob-like anomaly in the Triangle. In Homestead 2, we unearthed lines of weird materials that were comparable to what we saw in the Mesa. And in the South Field, we discovered mangled deer carcasses and witnessed a huge number of UAPs. They had hoped that by the time the experiment was over, not only would they have been able to discover what the strange things were, but they would also have triggered the appearance of more of them. In light of this, I have brought a total of 8 thermal imaging cameras, of which only 2 have a very high resolution. Therefore, if anything out of the ordinary takes place, even a slight change in temperature, we will be able to see it much more vividly than if we were to rely exclusively on the technology of classic thermal cameras. This is because the newer cameras have a higher resolution than the older ones. Because of this, if the object in question has a heat signature, they will locate it and take it. We plan to launch payloads from the position of the Triangle that will travel further than 100 feet into the air. During this time, David, Mason, Eric, and the rest of the crew are going to utilize 8 thermal cameras in order to keep an eye on everything that is going on. They will be able to recognize anything that goes through a sudden change in temperature, which is something that we cannot see with the naked eye, but that they will be able to detect. After our launch has taken place at the Triangle, we will travel to the South Field and conduct the experiment there. However, the specifics of this plan are subject to change based on the outcomes of the events that take place at the Triangle. They reasoned that the launcher and mortar would be the most effective combination to use. One would choose a side and then begin firing from that position. The second one made it to the other side and started firing the mortars once they arrived there. They simultaneously activated the 1.6 gigahertz sweep, during which they also launched the rockets and fire mortars. At around the 31-foot mark in height, the mortar was activated and set off. At first glance, it seemed as though the rocket was moving through the mortar before it suddenly exploded. However, this turned out not to be the case. Something obviously caused the mortar to detonate before its time, and caused the rocket to break into pieces almost immediately after they fired a rocket and a mortar into the air 31 feet above the Triangle in an attempt to excite the blob anomaly. This occurred almost immediately after they fired the rocket and mortar. In addition to this, it looked that the occurrence took place precisely at that level, which was 31 feet. The possibility of something like this occurring is laughable. They were unable to determine what it was, so one of them came to the opinion that they should immediately fire a series of mortars directly into the 31-foot zone to ascertain whether or not they would hit something or cause something to become visibly visible to David's thermal cameras. Because they were unable to tell what it was, they immediately fired a series of mortars directly into the 31-foot zone. They made their way to the top of the launch tower and made preparations to fire it once they were in the appropriate position. After that, they became conscious of the fact that there was something beyond the horizon. They researched a component of their extraordinary differential thermal camera and found that as a result of their analysis, their differential FLIR camera was able to produce an image. This was a differential thermal camera. They took on a color that was a good indicator of the temperature in the room at the time. In the event that it does turn out to be warmer than anticipated, the hue will transform into a dazzling yellow or even a pure white. They discovered something in the thermal image that appeared to be hotter than the area around it. It was determined that this anomaly may be seen in the thermal image. They were curious to learn whether or not they had been responsible for the appearance of a second blob anomaly in the sky, which was situated between the Triangle and the South Field. As a consequence of this, They came to the conclusion that the best course of action would be to go closer to the region in issue and carry out additional launches in an effort to bring whatever it was back into view and identify it. They followed the light and searched for an object on the south side of the woods when they discovered that one of them was recording something on camera. They came to the conclusion that they had been looking in the correct location for the object as they continued their search. It was directly in front of you, and this is the spot where one of their cameras captured a bright object in that area. They discovered an unusual phenomenon in the thermographic camera. They stated that they observed a light in the same location that could be seen in the near infrared. That was the component of the experiment that fascinated them the most during the whole process. They looked everywhere for the light, but they were unable to discover where it was hidden. They came to the conclusion that the rocket should be launched. The only thing that they could see at first was the trail that the rocket had left behind, but they were unable to make out the light within it. They were taken aback by the abrupt appearance of the light, but it vanished just as fast. It went into the ether without a trace. They have great observational skills. They were baffled by the fact that it had completely disappeared from their view. They came to the conclusion that the best course of action would be to return to the previous location in order to confirm what they had discovered. They regarded it as a success due to the fact that the experiment appeared to have caused events at the 31-foot altitude, which was the focus of the inquiry. There were numerous sightings of unidentified flying objects, UFOs, in the Uinta Basin that were reported to the media in the 1970s. The Deseret News, which has its headquarters in Salt Lake City, Utah, was the publication that first reported on the claims leveled against the ranch in 1996. After that, George Knapp, an investigative journalist, contributed a series of articles to the alternative weekly Las Vegas Mercury that were based on his findings and published those articles. These early publications featured specifics regarding the claims made by a family who, after purchasing and moving into the home, declared that they were greeted with horrific happenings that defied explanation. The family claimed that they were confronted with these terrifying occurrences when they were alone in the house. The ranch, which is located in the western section of Uinta County and is next to the Uinta and Ouray Indian Reservation, is widely referred to as the UFO Ranch because of the purported history of weird incidents that are believed to have taken place there over the course of the past 50 years. These sightings are said to have involved extraterrestrial craft. Do not forget to subscribe and turn on post notification to be updated on the next post. According to Kelleher and Knapp, they witnessed or investigated evidence of close to 100 incidents. Some of these incidents include cattle going missing and being mutilated, sightings of unidentified flying objects or orbs, large animals with piercing red eyes that remained unharmed after being shot at, and invisible objects emitting destructive magnetic fields. Kelleher and Knapp claimed that they witnessed or investigated evidence of close to 100 incidents. Sightings of unidentified flying objects, also known as orbs, are included in this category of incidents. One of the individuals participating was a former colonel in the United States Army by the name of John B. Alexander. He was the one who described the NIDSI initiative as an attempt to collect concrete data that was based on a regular scientific technique. On the other hand, the investigators claimed that they had difficulty obtaining evidence consistent with scientific publication. Over the course of several decades, accounts of cattle being mutilated for unknown reasons have become ingrained in the local folklore of the surrounding area. When Robert Bigelow, founder of the National Institute for Discovery Science, purchased the ranch in 1996 for the sum of $200,000, it was apparently because he had been convinced by the stories of mutilations recounted by the family of prior ranch owner Terry Sherman. According to reports, Bigelow was convinced by the accounts of mutilations because he had been convinced by the stories of mutilations provided by the family. These tales included accounts of peculiar lights and weird imprints created in the ground and grass. Bigelow is said to have been persuaded to buy the ranch as a result of the legends of mutilations that were told about the property. Research team just discovered a new force, and they just discovered the source. Click on the next video to find out what it is.